well. But I think this whole shift that we're looking at has to do with synesthesia and the synesthetic experience shared globally by people who can communicate through a holographic field, and in that way transcends the the obstacles that that human beings obviously on this planet must overcome if we want to survive things like the oil spill and whatever else that these money-hungry people can come up with for us.
Do you think that this was the mind of the ancient man and woman a little bit more, that they had this interconnectedness to begin with, hence they had the ability to build and create some of these monuments? Because one fascinating aspect of this that you mentioned to me is, does this mean that we consciously master this technique, or is this something that goes on in the case of Daniel here, Temet? Then he has it as a form of it's an unconscious process, if you will. It's just happening to him. I'd reckon that it's not a talent, so to speak, that he's learning to have developed, but it's just actually a side effect of something, or it's just happening to him. And would you suspect that that's the same thing that would happen to a lot of people on the planet then as well, if we go through this change?
Yes, I think that's exactly what is happening with us right now. And that my experience mirrors his and many other people who are perhaps more barefoot or more in tune to be at certain hotspots where this acoustic energy is focused. And I think the cause of this would be, in Daniel's case, the fact that he lives at the same distance from the Great Pyramid as Stonehenge, which is at 9.0% of the Earth's circumference from Giza. So that distance of 9% is, points to the fact that there is all this infrasound waves being focused on his area, and that he is one of the many people in that area who are really transducing those energies within their bodies into and having it reflect an alteration in their DNA that is underlying their new, inner communication that's going on. And I have that inner communication as well. And I know there are networks of people around the world who are more advanced in that inner communication than I am even. And they're communicating with each other, telepathically in ways that I'm not yet able to do consciously. Most of my communications are through deep meditations and through conscious thought and searching, whereby I have inspirational moments that I believe are certainly influenced by my higher self and other energies I'm looking to communicate with.
I want to talk more about that as well, but again, what you're saying is that just by close proximity to some of these monuments, or if we're in the right ratio from them, there can be certain benefits, so to speak, because of this then.
Yes, and I would say all of the research goes to show that the quality of the water in your body really dictates your body's ability to assimilate that energy, as well as the quality of the emotion in your heart and the emotion in your energy field. So, for example, there's extensive research now in crop circles where there's such a high energy of the new dimensional forces of infrasound in that space that crop circles are almost like an example of how these hotspots will be for miles around in the future. Yeah. And in the crop circles right now, when you go in, for example, some people, they notice their cell phones draining the batteries out immediately, or they don't work, and then immediately they'll walk outside the circle and they do work. And the same thing, Geiger counters give readings like this. All these energies have been recorded by people who are fascinated by the experience, but more so, they, within themselves emotionally, if someone's frustrated or angry, they can literally make themselves nauseous by, or if they've, got a chemical imbalance in their body that's causing emotional imbalances, that will manifest more clearly in the crop circle. And I think that is due to the fact that there's more energy there, and it's literally lowering the permeability of the body so that any chemicals in the body are able to penetrate more deeply, and there's more communication and more movement going on within the body because of all that energy. So, for example, One of the things that we haven't addressed yet that I think is really important to talk about before we finish up in terms of the energized water and the
Yes.
crystallization water concept has to do with the water found in La Mana, Ecuador. The
Yeah.
site that we had mentioned has the UV fluorescent artifacts. That water has been extensively studied for its intense energies, as well as the crystallization has been photographed through polarized light and the same techniques used by Masaru Emoto. And those photographs are remarkable, and I published them on my website and in my book, Phi. They present a full spectral array where all the colors of light, like in a prism, are divided spectrally, as well as really beautiful crystallization, just a remarkable energies. And all measurements, when compared with other waters, have been in millions of times, not just thousands, but millions of times greater than most water, city water or anything like that. And this site in La Mana literally has the effect of transmuting the human body into a vehicle for higher energies to move through. And I believe that that's what's happened in the case of people like Daniel Tammet as well, environmentally. And their own thoughts and emotions directly affects the quality of the water and the crystallization of the water in their body, which allows higher energy states to be achieved. So there's, certainly a question as to what you're putting in your body physically with the water you're drinking, but as well what you're putting in your body energetically with the feelings that you're engendering inside and the environment and the emotions that you're sharing with others.
Yes. And this water also that you talk about, didn't they contain a certain amount of gold and silver particles as well?
Exactly. That's one of the fascinating findings, is that there are trace amounts of nanoparticles of gold and silver. And on the water page on my website, I go into detail about how that exact particle size found in those waters, which is from 2 to 10 nanometers in size, those particle size were the exact size defined by researchers studying the efficacy of silver nanoparticles against viruses. So that particle size specifically has the right size to bond with the sulfur-bearing nodes on viruses which attack cells. So for example, HIV, I've got photos on my website, dark field images actually, of HIV with being attacked by silver of that particle size of 2 to 10 nanometers, which effectively kill it. And they do that by two processes, not only by conducting electricity through the nanoparticles, which strip the enzyme coatings of the virus, but also they stick to the sulfur that the viruses use to attach to host cells. And the sulfur binding protein in the the silver itself binds and blocks the protein knobs from having
connecting with our body. Yeah,
exactly, from having their effect. So they are starved essentially by the silver and killed electrically as well.
Well, that's interesting, because I know a while back there was talk about that too. They talked about cancer growths and things like that they could starve them of nutrition, but the problem was that as soon they did that and one died off, a new one went up. It's a bit of a complex problem, but I guess what you're saying here as well is that this is potentially obviously a cure for these things, and this water as well that you mentioned, this was found then naturally, right? It's a spring water in this region of La Mana in Ecuador, right?
It is coming out of the mountain, but I would hesitate to use the word natural, because my research shows that the distance and the location of this site in La Mana, as well as a site called Tlacote in Mexico, which is the only other site on Earth that I've been able to discover thus far where gold water flows on the surface. Gold nanoparticles are contained in the waters. Those two sites are mathematically showing the Fibonacci ratio with the pyramid exactly. So I would say, at a distance of 30% and 30.9% of the Earth's circumference.